I want to thank CSPC for inviting me here to speak. It's an honor. And I wanted to also thank the three speakers before me. They've all brought up a lot of good points that I'm going to try and incorporate into the answers to the three questions that we've been asked to address. I'll start with some of the personal challenges that I've had. And when I think about it globally, I guess it's hard to think about some of the challenges. I've always been in a male-dominated field. I did computer science at the University of Toronto to start with, and then I did my PhD in computational biophysics. But when I thought about it, I realized whatever there was, whatever challenges there were in that level, undergrad and PhD, a lot of it was in my head. I was putting up barriers for myself. I was thinking that I'm not a techie. For example, when I was in computer science, I didn't consider myself to be the best computer scientist because I would look around and there were these people, mostly guys, who spent day and night coding. I wasn't that person. I loved the theory behind computation. I loved the science of it, but it wasn't the only thing I loved. So I saw myself as a computer scientist, but perhaps not the best one in the group. And then the same thing carried through in my PhD, where I thought, I'm not the best computational biophysicist. This is something I love, and I love the science behind it, but I don't spend all my time doing this. So those were some things that I set up for myself. And I wanted to point to the imposter syndrome. When I arrived at Oxford, we were sitting in the Department of Biochemistry, and a counselor came in, a psychologist. And we were really excited to see this guy because the first thing he said, you all think you got here by mistake. And we all did think that, but nobody had admitted it up to that point. We all thought, there was 40 of us starting that year, and we all thought our file had fallen through the cracks somehow. And we had ended up at Oxford, sitting in the same room as some of the best biochemists in the world. So when he said that, we all sort of took a step back, and of the people, I was sort of impressed because a lot of the guys spoke up and they said, wow, I thought it was just me. And I realized that it wasn't just me and it wasn't just some of the girls I had been talking to about this, but some of the guys had the same sort of feelings. So just moving on to the current status of the way things are, there's a lot of challenges that have been pointed out, you heard about in the previous talks. There's a lot of work to be done. But I also want to point out that in some of the jobs that I've held since my PhD, I also find that it's a challenge for men. And for example, I started my career at the British Consulate as a science advisor. And after a year or two, I ended up being the team lead for Canada, and I had to hire staff. I ended up hiring, the first position was in Ottawa. I hired a woman, and there was maybe 300 applicants. Second position in Montreal, it was another woman, another maybe 200 applicants there. Third position in Vancouver, I felt that if I had hired another woman, I would have to explain myself to the High Commissioner. So I decided that I needed to really think more about, trying to be, I had to think the other way, try to be more fair to the men and maybe look for some of the things that they're maybe not saying, but they could be capable of doing in interviews. Just on the last point on some recommendations, I think it's a mindset, and this is something that sort of ties back to my first point, that we need to really act a certain way and behave a certain way and maybe change the way we think about ourselves and sort of jump over those barriers and just move ahead rather than think about all the barriers that are there constantly. It's good to be aware of them, good to find solutions for them. And I think it's an ideal time to find solutions because we have technological capabilities we've never had before. We can set up environments in departments or offices that are able to help women, and we have the technology to sort of carry those out. So, yeah, thank you very much.